And good afternoon. And thank you for tuning in to Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. I'm Sheryl White, and I will be somewhat, I guess, your semi co host today because we're going to be having a roundtable discussion. I think we'll all be leading and joining in as we discuss leadership and emotional intelligence. So I am super delighted to have both of our co hosts with me today, and that is Dr. Loretta Howard and Dr. Undraye Howard. So
Hello.
welcome to the round table.
Hello. Hello.
Right. Thank you. Yep.
Okay.
Good to be with you, ladies.
Yeah, so as usual, I think we'll start with the audience question and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Great.
So, and let's see, Dr. Dre, I'll ask you to respond first and then we'll hear from Dr. Loretta. So,
Okay.
how does a person improve their emotional intelligence? Was the question, and there's bits and pieces to it. It says, I've been told I need to improve in this area, but have not been given any concrete explanation on why
Mm,
or how to do this.
yeah.
So, what might you share,
Yeah.
this person?
I think, again, love the questions from the audience. They always get me to thinking too, as well. I think about, the whole phenom and really thinking about the background of this emotional intelligence. And I think, I believe it's Goldman who kind of came up, Dan Goldman, who kind of identified these domains of emotional intelligence, awareness, self-management, social awareness, like empathy and kind of relationship management. So, I think for me, it comes down to trying to understand why someone might be told they need to improve
Hmm.
their emotional intelligence. And there could be a number of reasons, right? And so, maybe, you may tend to react quickly. Maybe you struggle to read how others are feeling in the room. Maybe relationships at work may feel kind of transactional or very rigid or very tense. So, I think for me, one way to improve is to certainly try to figure out, well, why am I being asked to improve? And, what's that trigger point for me as part of that process? And I think just a couple things to kind of consider as we talk about engaging and really improving our emotional intelligence is really to, kind of always breathe before you respond to questions or to something that you know you're going to react that may have high stake moment to it. I always like to, seek feedback as part of that process. I think that's always a powerful piece to think about as well. And then a lot of reflection, maybe journaling at the end of the day or whatever you might do to kind of log, thoughts for the day or at the end of the week, just kind of do a recollection. Myself being a social introvert, I do a lot of reflection in terms of, what did I do well? What didn't I do so well? What can I improve upon as part of that process? And I think that helps with the equation of improving emotional intelligence. So I would just offer those pieces up.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Dre. Dr. Loretta, what about yourself? What are some thoughts that come to mind?
I agree with everything that Dr. Dre said, but in addition to that, just the type of person that I am, I would go to them and ask them to give me an example because I try to be self-aware of my moods, even if I'm having an off day or whatever. How am I responding to people or trying to pay attention how they might respond to me because maybe my intention is not to be rude or something, but it's the way I come across and the impact it has on them. But I would want to know a specific, if they could give me specific details, because that would kind of help me to figure out what I'm doing or maybe what was going on there and I wasn't paying attention to it because I really want to improve. So I want to know, specifically what did I do if they could tell me what I had done.
Yeah, I think both of those hopefully are helpful responses. The why. I love the thought of both of you with regards to the feedback as relates to not making the other person defensive, but to maybe say, my improving self, I mean, improving emotional intelligence for the purpose of, or, what would I be doing better if I were to
Mm-hmm.
improve in this area? It feels
Right.
important. The how we go about doing it, one of the first steps in that process, and I'm sure we'll talk about more of this as we go through today, but that one of those first steps is self-awareness. And feedback is
Mm-hmm.
certainly one of those things that can give us some self-awareness. And Dr. Dre, that reflection I think is great.
Yeah.
The breathing helps with the self-regulation, which I think is another important part
Yes.
of that emotional intelligence too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
love
You know,
that. And I think we'll
it's
talk about the empathy and other things
right.
as we go through the process.
Yeah.
Dr. Dre, you want
It's
to say
so
something?
it's so funny to think about. I'm just wondering, this emotional intelligence conversation we're having.
Mhm.
Does everyone have emotional intelligence? Is that the assumption that we make that everyone's assigned emotional intelligence, whether it's high or whether it's low? I mean, could it also be no? There is none. There's no such thing for a person to have emotional intelligence. It ain't gonna happen. So they don't have it. So it's something to
Mhm.
think about too. I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, I would I would say that too, that there's a continuum, right? Maybe there's not that everyone has some amount of self-awareness, some
Hmm.
ability to self-regulate, hopefully an ounce at least of empathy,
Okay.
and awareness of others and environment around them. And so I would think the answer to your question would be everyone has some dose
Okay.
of
Okay.
emotional intelligence.
Okay.
May not be enough to pull off successfully, perhaps, what they might be tasked with doing with regards to maybe working with others on a
Mhm.
team or leading others or what that might look like. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
mhm.
I'm just wondering. I mean, we just assume everyone has EI, so I don't know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Okay. And you might say EI being, for those who don't know what that means, what does that
emotional
mean?
intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so, kind of speaking in or staying in that lane, we're kind of talking about that, and our audience question is, how do I improve? Why they be saying this to me? If we step back and say, what is it? What
Hmm.
does emotional intelligence mean to you, Dr. Dre?
Yeah, I think I think what I said a little bit earlier in terms of just the ability to kind of to recognize, understand my emotions, how I
Mhm.
use those emotions, on a personal level, professional level, in my relationships and the decision-making processes that I employ. I think that to me is kind of the bottom line for emotional intelligence. It's the moment where I really have a choice, right? It's the space between what I feel and what I do. And
Mhm.
that pause in between the two becomes very important because that certainly shapes and connects the both of those paradigms, what I feel and what I do. And so, I think about it as that moment that you have a choice, the moment that you really think about what true emotional intelligence is all about. And again, as you think about, I often like to use the words the soft heart, hard head. Emotional intelligence is what really keeps those two things in balance. Without it, hard head becomes cold, a soft heart becomes a liability. And so bridging the two and making sure it's able to lead people's, and more importantly, lead yourself as well. So
Great. Thank you, Dr. Dre. And Dr. Loretta, what about yourself? What does emotional intelligence mean to you?
Well, I agree with it is about me managing my own emotions, but also having an awareness of other people's emotions
Mhm.
when we are in a room having conversations. I do like to watch a room and how people react to things that are being said to see if their nonverbals change or anything, because they might be having a reaction to it. But one of the things that I had to learn for my own emotional intelligence is not to respond immediately all the time. Sometimes I just have to pause and wait a minute, try to, read between the lines of what somebody might be saying. And when I do react, it's intentional. I try not to always do it off the cuff because it might be perceived the wrong way. So, and that is something that I have to practice because it doesn't always come across that way. So it is something that it's a learned behavior, and I have to work on myself to do that.
mm, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I love what each of you have shared with regards to that emotional intelligence, including being aware of our own emotions, being aware of others' emotions, being able to manage our emotions and how we're self-regulating and how we're showing up, um, as well as Andre, I think you said heart and head. So
mhm,
Mhm.
also, being able to use our emotions our emotional intelligence, that information that we've gathered about our own emotions and others, in addition to our cognitive intelligence, as we are making decisions and how we leverage all of that in a way that allows us to build and maintain, enhance relationships. So,
Yeah, yeah,
great. Thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. But let me, so Dr. Cheryl, I mean, so do you view emotional intelligence as being essential to effective leadership? I mean, can you still be an effective leader with again maybe perhaps low emotional intelligence? If yes, why? If no, why not?
Hmm. Well, I see emotional intelligence as being essential to
Mm,
relationship management. And I think that leadership is a relationship. So if someone's lacking self-awareness, lacking empathy, lacking awareness of others and the environment in which they're navigating in, it may impact their ability to successfully influence. It may impact their ability to coach and develop others. It could impact their ability to manage, inevitable conflict that we all have to navigate and deal with. It could certainly impact one's teamwork as well as a person's ability to inspire others. So I do see emotional intelligence as being essential
yeah,
to leadership.
yeah. How about you, Dr. Loretta? Same or something different?
Oh, yeah, I think it's absolutely necessary. There's a saying, and our bishop has said it a lot, and I take that to heart. It's people don't care how much you know until
Hmm.
they know how much you care. And I
Hmm.
absolutely believe that because you can be brilliant and have this brilliant mind, but you still need to make those relationships with people, and they need to know that you actually take their feelings, that you care about them as well. So I think you absolutely have to have that as a leader.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And I would echo both of you. I think, really being a complete leader, an effective leader, you have to be able to be able to manage your emotional intelligence, to kind of know the temperature around that, to be able to turn it up, turn it down, based upon who you're leading, based upon the context, the situation, just being fully aware. I think really is what it comes down to in terms of emotional intelligence. And so I think without controlling emotional intelligence as a leader, you can't be totally effective. And lots of leaders out there who the emotional intelligence level is on zero or non-existence, and those are sometimes the worst leaders, worst examples of leadership as well. So I certainly subscribe to what both of you have said. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
Hmm.
really good questions. So I'll ask the next question, Dr. Dre, and then Dr. Cheryl, if you'll respond. When did you first realize emotional intelligence mattered in your leadership journey?
Hmm. I wish I could say I learned it early on in my leadership journey, but I didn't. Honestly, I didn't. I learned it the hard way. Certainly I believe as I reflect, I think there was a moment in my leadership journey, where I was really focused on, and believe it or not, focused on being right, and being right all the time. But I
Not
can,
you.
yeah, well, okay, all right. Yeah, there you go. I deserve that jab. And I completely missed being effective. I had the facts, I had the logic, I even had the data, I had the charts to show, but I still lost, the room. I still lost the connection between those whom I were leading. So people didn't follow me, not because my idea was so wrong, but because they didn't feel like I saw them in the process. And so that kind of stung me and really pushed me to think, what I need to focus in on. And so I really gave that some thought, and really thought about, well, for me, that was a turning point. And so I stopped asking, how do I get people to do what needs to be done, for example, and started asking, how do I make my team, how do I make people feel valued enough to want to do things? So that question changed kind of everything about how I led, and really kind of, took the focus off me, myself, and I, and really us in a way of trying to address and accomplish challenges within the workplace.
Dr. Cheryl?
Hmm. I think for me, when I think about when I first realized that this thing called emotional intelligence, and I don't know that at the time I would have even called it emotional
Yeah,
intelligence.
yeah, that's a good point.
Um, But I think when I first realized, you know, relationships were always easy for me. That part was not challenged with regards to being able to have positive relationships with others. But I think I had an experience in college. And what I think back to understanding and realizing was I grew up with very strong emotions, and I had to learn to emotionally regulate because I could get stuck in what might even be look like a temper tantrum to some.
Yeah.
For me, it was just conviction, and so I think for me, I think of leadership as starting with self. And an important part of leadership is being able to influence. And so realizing that my temper tantrum but not going to change the situation and
Right.
could probably make it worse
Mm.
was the lesson I had to learn. So I would say that for me became, real important with regards to understanding what's important to me, but then also understanding that sometimes those things that were outside of my control that I was going to have to simply accept, and also uh, that that regulating would allow me to influence better, and um, and that was and caring less. Sometimes it
Mm.
meant caring less.
Mm.
Like I just have to um, care less in order to be able to regulate in those moments more effectively. Mhm.
Great answers. I know we're close on break, but
Mhm.
for me, it was probably the first time I had a supervisory role, and I have always loved policies. I like standards, procedures. This is the way things are supposed to go, people. And if we just follow the policy, it's all gonna work out.
Mhm.
Until a situation came with an individual, I remember it was around attendance and needed some documentation for the person to bring in. And my whole thing was, okay, I'm going to need you to provide this documentation that you weren't in because of what, the situation was. And the person felt that I really didn't care about them. They had been in a serious accident and I didn't even ask. It was like, okay, I need you to get this paperwork to me. And my intention was not bad and not that I didn't care, but I was so focused on following policy and procedure that I literally had not taken the time to say, are you all right? Is it, so that really hit me hard because the person said, you don't care about me, you just care about the policies. And a part of me was like, you're right, but I did really care. But it was, I was much younger and fresh out of, kind of thinking, oh yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be. But that's not always the way it's supposed to be. So that was a real eye opener for me about how I need to really be in tune with other people and what they're going through. And sometimes just stop, be quiet, don't respond yet, and
Mhm.
then go through it. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, no, wonderful. Mhm.
I
Good.
still like policies though.
Yeah. So I appreciate just that discussion. I think we're
Yeah.
going to take a short break, and when we come back, look forward to having more discussion, including, how do we balance, an important part of emotional intelligence, which Dr. Loretta, you were just talking about with regards to empathy, with the need to still have accountability. The other thing that's interesting as we're having this
Totally.
conversation, me knowing everybody's Myers-Briggs, including my own, I can hear my intuitive filler nation, or say nature come out. Dr. Dre, I heard yours with regards to the logic,
Yep.
and Dr. Loretta, and yours being intuitive thinker, and then Dr. Loretta, I heard your SJ with regards to stabilizer and follow those rules.
Right. Right.
And so I think as we increase self-awareness, it does increase our ability to self-regulate. And those things that we think are important, but how do we balance them? Because usually our strengths are, I should say, our challenges very often align with our strengths. So anyway, we'll be right back with more on Leadership Matters, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. And we are back with more with Leadership Matters, the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions, having a roundtable discussion today with my co-host, Dr. Undraye Howard, Dr. Loretta Howard, and I'm Dr. Sheryl White. So we'll go to our next audience question, which was, I have a supervisor who seems to have a good relationship with his supervisor and other leaders above him, but is often dismissive and borderline rude to staff who report to him. This demotivates staff. Any suggestions? Dr. Loretta, I want to start with you, and then we'll go to Dr. Dre.
Wow. Okay. Well, here here I go. It's like I would want to document the instances when it happens. Okay, there I go. But document in the sense that I would want to have a conversation with that person and let them know this, it's not just a one time, but it's a pattern of behavior that I've been seeing. Can we talk about it and why are they treating, the staff that way who you really need, but everyone above you, you're just, you're fine with. I probably would document it and want to have a conversation and discuss. Maybe the person isn't even aware of it, so bring that awareness to them. And if they are aware of it, well, then that's another thing, but we've got documentation and human resources.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Loretta. How about yourself,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Documentation, yuck, 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 yuck. Documentation. Well, anyway, um, I think I would try to understand what's really happening, right? I think the supervisor may be falling into one of several camps, maybe more of a transactional leader, just see staff as tools to get to the results. Maybe there's some insecurity there on behalf of the supervisor, right? And so some leaders are warm upward because they need approval from power, and cold downward because they need to feel powerful somewhere. Or maybe they just, it's an unexamined habit. I throw that one in there. So may not even realize how they're coming across. And no one below
Mhm.
feels that they have the safety to tell him. And no one above, of course, is watching close enough. So I think, maybe categorizing where this particular supervisor may lie may then define where I go with what I need to do, right? I may need to, again, okay, I was playing around with but document specific incidents so you can have a good discussion, a safe discussion with the facts, details. Don't suffer silence, but be strategic about how you go about to speak up, to bring up to your supervisor the pattern of behavior that you're noticing. If you're kind of on the same level, peers, because sometimes it's tough for a peer to tell another peer what they observe, but name what you observe and perhaps model the opposite. So I would offer those kind of nuggets, I guess, up for this particular individual who's going through this particular question and scenario.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dre. And again, thank you, Dr. Loretta. It is a difficult situation because they do say it's a supervisor.
Right.
And because they can see the person maybe engaging in a more palatable way going up, one would assume that they have the skills to manage relationships positively. And there's this power dynamic that one would have to take into consideration. I would maybe encourage if they have a mentor, a trusted advisor somewhere to maybe have a conversation with regards to how to do what both of you have described, and that is how might they stay safe and bring it to the supervisor's attention. So difficult situation to be in, and maybe a trusted advisor could support them in how they might manage having such a conversation. So
Yeah,
thank you for sending in those
absolutely.
questions. We
Good.
appreciate it, and please continue to send your questions in. And see if I can find the email address. It's Leadership Matters questions, no spaces, at Innovisions, INNOVISIONS.org. Thank you again for those questions. Dr.
Yeah.
Dre, I'll toss it over to you.
Yeah, I can't just another point on that question because it's such a profound one. I continue to think a leader who is charming to power and dismissive to people it really not an actually is a good, it's not an actual good leader. I'll just put that out there. So I'll
Mhm.
stake my claim to that as well. So just for folks to resonate on that. But here's a question I'll have for you, Dr. Cheryl, and then to you, Dr. Loretta. What can a person do to help develop their emotional intelligence? I know we kind of spun a little bit on this earlier, but is there something specific that a person can do to kind of help develop their emotional intelligence?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think anything that helps them to become more aware of themselves, so that they can check, do my intentions
Hmm.
develop greater skills in perspective taking,
Hmm.
as well as being aware of others' emotions
Hmm.
and being able to respond with empathy to others can help. I think, and then uh, developing skills around um, how to influence, developing skills around responding constructively to conflict, um, developing skills around uh, some of the team development types of trainings might also increase awareness of oneself in relation to others. So that would be, some, and back to what you said earlier with regards to taking the time to self-reflect and taking the time to ask for feedback. That can again increase awareness of oneself and awareness of the impact that we're having on others.
Great, great. Dr. Loretta, how about you?
I agree with the self-reflection. And one of the things that has kind of helped me is I love to journal how the
Mhm,
Hmm.
day has gone so I can look back at things, possibly my reaction to them or, someone else's reaction to something I said, but, those nuggets that I need that were really important throughout the day. And I ask for feedback all the time, genuinely wanting it and listening, really, truly listening to individuals. And again, not thinking about what I'm going to say next, but listening to what they're saying and how that could help me because sometimes you'll pick up on something that you don't realize. So
mhm,
definitely that self-reflection.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like both what you have stated. I would add, I like sometimes auditing relationships too, right? Where you kind of look at the people around you and ask yourself who drains the room when they enter, who energizes it, and honestly ask yourself, which one am I being right now? And in what context? And so it's a way to self-check yourself and do a self-audit as part of the relationships you might have with your team as well. So I would just add that to it. So, but thank
mhm,
you both for that. So excellent.
mhm.
Right. So next question, I'll give it to you, Dr. Dre, and then Dr. Cheryl. How do you stay aware of your own emotional triggers in high pressure moments?
Mm. Um, Another good question here, boy. I can stumble because there's so much to say about emotional intelligence. I think, staying aware again in those high pressure moments is honestly where a lot of great leaders just fall apart. And, I'm in full transparency to include me at times. But pressure, again, has a way of kind of bypassing everything you know and going straight to everything you feel. And for me, awareness starts before the moment ever arrives. I've had to do the work of knowing, again, I keep going back to these triggers in calm seasons, so I'm not discovering them in a crisis season. And I'll be honest, I think, for me personally, I think perhaps the biggest trigger is that feeling of disrespect, right? Not disagreed with, because I mean, we can disagree, but the disrespect piece is my trigger. So I've called that out. I know that's what gets me in terms of awareness and just being in control of that. So when I sense that someone's kind of dismissing me, someone's kind of dissing me, particularly to the team I'm responsible for, something certainly rises up in me fast. But I call it out early on, and I name it, I own it, because once I can name it and own it, then it loses its power over me, and so I can kind of regain my composure around emotional intelligence. So I think, just again, just trying to figure out, what are my triggers, in those high pressure moments, what really gets me kind of teed off a little bit, and just call it out when it happens, and it helps me manage the emotional intelligence component.
Mhm. Mm.
Dr. Sheryl?
Yeah, I will build upon and agree with Dr. Dre. I think being aware of what I don't know if I like using the word trigger, but I'll use the word trigger. What
Hmm.
being aware of what that is for me is helpful, and then also just having awareness that in those moments where I feel something is real important to do, like Dr. Dre said earlier today, and pause. For me, pausing is delay responding, reflective thinking. Something happens. For me, it's a matter of knowing that I'm going to need to pause to self regulate and then respond. So that way I'm not reacting from a space of emotion, but I've given myself an opportunity to listen to the messages that I'm learning from the emotions that I'm feeling, because I always say emotions are signals and they're messages that we get from them. So I think it's important for me to hear those, but also to be able to pause long enough to wrap it in some cognitive intelligence so that the delivery is more in alignment with what I'm intending than simply a emotional reaction.
Yeah.
I agree with what both of you said. And for me, one of the things I definitely have to do is be aware of my own physical presence, what I'm
Mhm,
experiencing. And
mhm.
one of the things, unfortunately, and I'm out, when we had COVID and we had to wear a mask, that was almost a good thing for me because when 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 something is kind of triggering me, people could tell because my cheeks would get red and the tips of my ears would get red. So
Mm.
I'm really very aware if I can feel myself. I feel that it's affecting me physically. So it's,
Mhm,
I check my
mhm,
breathing. I may have to walk away or grab a glass of water or
Yeah.
drink something, but just having that awareness because
mhm,
other people are looking at me too. And I know my
Mhm.
nonverbals might be saying something that I don't want it to say
mhm,
right
Mhm.
away. So
mhm,
that
mhm,
is, I'm getting better. I'm
Yeah.
practicing every day.
Yeah. 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 But Dr.
mhm,
Loretta, Dr. Sherrill, don't you think that we need to have some of those natural things just happen? I mean, don't people have to see you get, perturbed and upset and red cheeks and I'm not breathing this time. I'm just going to let you have it and just explode. I mean that's being real, isn't it? As a leader, I get what we're trying to talk about. I mean, emotional intelligence and be in control. I get that, but there are times when I think we are real people, and
mhm,
so I think it's okay to to just show your emotion, and it may not be the best
mhm,
response. When you kind of think about it later on. So I don't know.
mhm. Well, I do think the more the older we get, the wiser we get,
Sure.
the more control we get, the better and more effective we're going to be.
Mhm.
So does it happen where leaders kind of let it go? Yes. Is that the ideal thing? No. So if I'm going to be my best version of myself, then I want to manage it. Are there times when I don't? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Are those times I'm proud of? No. So to be my best version of myself, I want to be aware of and be more intentional about how I
Mhm.
manage those moments.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm,
And just to answer that, I think it depends on the situation sometimes what's going
mhm,
on. But I have
mhm,
found myself when I have let go, I
mhm,
found that I needed to come back and say, hey, that was not the best
mhm,
way I could have addressed that
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm.
Not that I'm necessarily apologizing. Yes, was it upsetting or whatever the case might be,
mhm,
but from that leadership perspective, I felt I needed to go back and say, hey, I admit this was not the best way I should have handled it
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
move on from there. So I admit it. But have I blown up? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
mhm,
And
mhm.
boy, didn't it sure feel good, Dr. Cheryl and Dr. Loretta, that you blew up? I mean, yeah, I
No.
realize that you have to go back and apologize, but for that moment, okay, yeah, let me have my
No.
moment.
Mm-mm. I am most proud of the moments when I have not.
Okay.
And I can actually think of a real like live example in my mind of when I was so proud of myself for maintaining composure
Okay.
in a difficult situation. So for me, I'm much more thankful when I don't have to go back and clean up. And
Okay.
instead, after the interaction, I'm celebrating
Okay.
how I managed it versus, embarrassed that
Okay.
I let go that way.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. Yeah.
I agree with Dr. Sheryl on
All
would
right.
much rather not have to go back and apologize because I have had to do that, and I've had to do that recently. So yeah, I agree with her.
All right.
So, when you think about the balance between empathy and accountability,
Yeah.
how does one go about balancing being empathetic and also um, holding people accountable as necessary?
Mhm.
And you say, Dr. Loretta, you want to go first or Dr. Trey?
That is a good one because empathy, we're kind of under putting ourselves in their shoes, trying to understand where they come from. Accountability, that's my rules, that's the policies, and holding people to that expectation. So I really do try to do them both. And as you said earlier, Dr. Cheryl, as we become more mature, seasoned, we learn to do those things a lot better. Do I do it with everything I do? No, I don't. But I do try to be much more aware of it and try to have a blending of understanding where people are coming from. It's like, well, if I were in that situation, how would I feel or how would I react? So I really do try to do that and still maintaining, well, we have these procedures for a reason, but I try to take some things one individual case at a time
Mhm.
because it's a case at a time. Not everyone is trying to do something that they shouldn't be doing across the board. And I try to take it as individual cases. But again, I'm still working on it, but I do try to
Mhm.
have a blend of that because the two of you know I love some rules.
Yeah.
Dr. Trey, you want to give us a tip of your iceberg of
Yeah.
your thoughts? And if we need to put a comment and
Yeah.
continue on the other end, we win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or we will.
I know. I know. I think about. I mean, I think about empathy and accountability. A lot of folks think about it as being on the opposite ends, kind of the scale. But like if you push one side down, the other side goes up. But that's totally false, right? That's the wrong way of thinking about the balance between those two. Here's how I think about it. Empathy without accountability is sympathy, and sympathy doesn't develop people. It just makes them comfortable where they are. And accountability without empathy is simply enforcement. And enforcement without the relationship creates compliance at best and resentment at the worst. So I balance them by trying to separate, I think what Dr. Loretta said to some degree, is by separating the person from the performance. I can have a deep care for who you are while still holding a firm line on what the work requires. And so those two things don't cancel each other out. In fact, I would argue that the most empathetic, engaging leader and thing you can do for someone is to believe they're capable of more and then hold them to it. And so low expectations dressed up as kindness isn't empathy, it's a quiet form of disrespect as well. So that's how I would respond to that.
Okay, well, I appreciate both of those responses. And we're going to take another short break, but when we come back, looking forward to continuing the conversation, maybe discussing what might emotional intelligence within a team culture look like, what might be some emotional intelligence things that are important for our next generation that's coming up. May look a little different, maybe have a different emphasis than when we were coming up in this space. So, anyway, stay with us. We'll be right back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. And we are back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors. Delighted to be having this roundtable conversation with Dr. Loretta Howard, Dr. Undraye Howard, and I am your semi-lead host for today. We're sharing that role, Dr. Sheryl White. So, Dr. Loretta, I'm going to just toss it over to you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cheryl. And my question is, how do you rebuild trust after a difficult leadership mistake? And we'll start with you, Dr. Dre, and then Dr. Cheryl.
All right. Well, I could answer and say I never make a leadership mistake, but I wouldn't be honest with folks with that one, that response.
Mhm.
So let me be very careful about how I answer this. Yeah, certainly I've made mistakes in leadership, decisions that have affected people, moments where I wasn't so focused on the outcome and I just kind of steamrolled through the process. I think, you need to own it, right? That you did make a mistake. I mean, no qualifiers, no, but the situation was this, or no, you have to understand the pressure I was under, or what happened was, I simply was wrong. So I've got to own that, and that was my call. And so owning it, I think, is important. And then, which is critical, this piece is then you have to change the behavior, right? Not just repeat it again. So own it, make a commitment to change the behavior for the next time, and not just be a conversation. So words without this change behavior certainly is not acceptable. They're just good communication principles if you are not able to change the behavior in whole. So I think, really building trust is such a delicate process. And once you lose it, it's hard to build. But I think, one way you can start that building momentum is, again, just own it, and then just, again, change the behavior and check yourself so you don't go back through that trap again as well. So I would offer that up to think about.
Hmm. Yeah, and I will say ditto. I mean, to own it to me is apologize.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
changing the behavior is making amends. So I'm
Mm,
going to apologize and then amend my ways with the person with regards to identify what I'm going to do differently. And I think the trust gets rebuilt as we are consistent
yeah.
in doing what we said we're going to do.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I agree with both of you. And I think for me, I usually like to have someone who I trust enough to say, hey, if you see me sliding back into this type of behavior, doing something, please tell me, hold me
Mhm.
accountable. Because if I said I'm going to do something, I definitely want to do it. So having someone who actually can hold me accountable for my own actions as well. But I agree with what both of you said.
Mm.
Okay. One more question for you. What does an emotionally intelligent team culture look like to
Mm.
you, and why is it important? Dr. Cheryl, we'll start with you.
Hmm. I think an emotionally intelligent team to me looks like a team where the members of the team are self-aware. I think that they show empathy toward each other, so they consider how what they say impacts others, um, and they're situationally aware, and so they understand the challenges that the team is up against, and although they want to make sure that the team is achieving its goals, they're also sensitive to how the team is going to go about accomplishing their goals. So I think in a team where there's good self-awareness, then when differences come up, they can respond to that conflict in a constructive way. They influence each other above the board, and they have open conversations. They can admit when they have made mistakes,
Mm.
and and I think an emotionally intelligent team is one where it's positioned for positive success without so much interpersonal turmoil or challenges or discomfort happening. So I think a emotionally intelligent team is probably going to be a happy team and a prosperous team and a productive team. That's what I
Mhm.
think that because I think the culture supports those things.
Dr. Dre?
Yeah, on the same lines as Dr. Cheryl, I think, the first word that comes to mind when I think about an emotionally intelligent team is, I'm going to use these two words, psychological safety,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
not comfort,
mm-hmm.
safety. Those are two very different things. So don't get it twisted.
Mhm.
Comfortable culture avoids hard conversations. A safe culture can have hard conversations without people feeling like their position, their dignity, their position is on the line. So that distinction is very important. So
Mhm.
emotionally intelligent team culture, people can tell the truth. They
Mhm.
can say, I don't know. They can say, I made a mistake. They can say, I disagree with that direction. And none of those statements cost them a seat at the table. And I've worked with environments where people performed wellness
Mhm.
while privately drowning,
Mm,
where meetings had all the right energy on the surface and it looked so pretty and beautiful on the top, and
Mhm.
complete dysfunction underneath.
Mhm.
That's not an emotionally intelligent culture. That's
Mhm.
emotional theater. All right. And so we have to think about those two. An emotionally intelligent team
Mhm.
looks like this to me. The feedback flows in every direction, not just from
Mhm.
top down from down to the top. Conflict gets named, navigated rather than avoided. People know each other well enough to notice when something's off.
Mhm.
They care enough to ask. Failures are examined without shame, and the leader sets the temperature for all of it. So it's
Mhm.
important to think about the coaching competent, emotionally competent team that way. I think that helps a lot in terms of thinking through that process.
Mhm.
I agree with both of those answers. I love them. I really do. It's for me that culture is going to be where again people do feel safe. They're fine with speaking up. They know there's not going to be any retaliation. Again, whether it's going if you are even managing up with your own boss or whomever it might be, you don't have a fear of even giving them feedback because they needed to. And sometimes people don't want to say anything because that's the person who writes my check or whatever the case might be. They can terminate me, but it's okay to be able to be a leader to accept that from someone who reports up to you as well. And I think that kind of environment, they can handle conflict and it's okay. You're going to have conflict. You're not always going to agree. Who wants a bunch of yes people anyway? You want a little bit of rub and have that really good dialogue with people. And that's where you can get better ideas. It's innovative. People can be more creative and they're okay with that. So for me, that's what an emotionally intelligent team culture would look like.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Love it.
Mhm. How about for yourself, Dr. Dre?
I think as I answer, I think it's really thinking about the emotionally intelligent team is again just being open, honest, transparent,
Mhm.
and very engaging with each other without having to think about okay, what's the cost I'm going to pay for
Mhm.
opening my mouth and being truthful and open and honest.
Yeah.
So I think that's really
No, yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, I appreciate your revisiting that.
yeah, yeah.
Mm, yeah. Hmm.
So let me ask this: how do the next generation? Let's just get this on the table. I love our next generation. Is it Xers, I, Zs,
Hmm.
Moonlighters, baby
Not
boomers?
alpha or is it
I
alpha?
don't I don't know. It's
There
something.
is a new one out here. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But how do you see emotional intelligence shaping the next generation of leaders? I mean, have you noticed anything with the next generation of leaders? Is there something different about emotional intelligence? Is there something we need to pay attention to with the next generation of leaders around emotional intelligence?
I
Dr.
think it's just a matter of us continuing to share the awareness that we have evolved
Hmm.
over the generations to understand the importance of relationships and just how important relationships are. So I think that where this may not have been an important curriculum piece, even in high school or college, I think that hopefully the next generation, they begin to learn empathy in preschool and elementary school and so on and
Mhm.
so forth. So maybe we become a more considerate generation. It just becomes a natural thing that people are able to use their cognitive and emotional intelligence together.
Dr. Loretta?
Um, I think that's a really good question because I started thinking about how this generation, there's more remote work. They're
Mhm.
not necessarily together in the same spot. And with all the technology changes and how you really don't have to be there with someone, and you could have an AI avatar answering I mean, as a matter of
Right.
fact, how do you know I'm not an avatar answering
Yeah.
these questions?
Yeah.
At
I
this
believe
point,
you are. I believe you are. But anyway, yeah.
but it makes me think about, what would they do? How will they have that emotional intelligence? Because we rely so much on technology in this day and age. So I think that is a good question. I'm really trying to think what
Yeah.
do I think they will need to do? How are they going to be able to? I know we have these meetings with the Zoom and the YouTube
Hmm.
and all that, but
Yeah.
still there can be something missing. So they still need to have those connections, I think,
Yeah.
with each other. And then there's so much around people being somewhat isolated, because I can work all day from home and not have to deal with people all day,
Hmm.
that isolation, and that can go into their own self-care and mental health. So that's a real good question. I don't think I have a definitive answer,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
when you said it, it made me start thinking there's such a technology focused generation. I
Hmm.
I am concerned now,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
even more
No.
so.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think the next generation of leaders are really inheriting a world that's really complex, complicated, maybe more connected,
Indeed.
maybe more volatile, maybe even
Mhm.
more transparent. I mean, I think what I see is a generation that already is more emotionally aware when they are often then they're often given credit for. They talk about mental health without shame. They name burnout without apology. They ask why before they comply. They want to know that their work
Well, it's
matters, that
true.
their leader sees them. So I think that piece is good. What concerns me sometimes is the awareness without discipline,
Mhm.
is just sensitivity. And so I just challenge the younger generation to kind of think about that. And I say that with love because I want our next generation to be in the winning circle. And so again, just making sure they know what their triggers are,
Mhm.
I think would be important to kind of consider as
Mhm.
part of that process. So yeah, so a powerful
Good.
question. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Good.
definitely,
So
definitely.
as we are transitioning and I guess closing out our round table for the day, final thoughts.
I mean, this has been a fascinating conversation. I mean, we could go on and on and on about it. But that question we've been asking all of our guests, if you could give your younger self one piece of leadership advice,
Hmm.
what would it be? And I know we asked that question last month, I believe. Did
Hmm.
any of your answers change? I think I said nothing, nothing. My advice would change nothing, right? Because I just think about, the road isn't easy. It's who I am. It's what made me today. I was
Hmm.
wondering, did your answers change from last month to today? And just,
Well,
so,
I don't know what my answer was last month, but
okay.
one thought that comes to mind is a piece of advice that I got from Harold Tuck as he was sharing on
Okay.
Leadership Matters years back, and he was talking about technology. And his words were, "The moment you lose your patience is the moment you lose."
Wow. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
uh,
Okay.
and I think just staying mindful of that,
Right.
something that
Excellent.
comes to mind. Any final thoughts, Dr. Loretta?
Yeah, I still feel the same way that I said before. I mean, there are some things I probably have added, but failure is not final.
Hmm.
And if I make a mistake, I fail at something, it doesn't mean it's the end of it. Maybe it's just a lesson that needed to be
Mhm.
learned to help me to be better in whatever capacity or role that I have. But failure is not final. I'm still
Okay.
sticking with that.
Okay, wonderful.
Love
Well,
it.
thank you
Love it.
both for this
Yeah.
energizing
Thank
roundtable
you.
discussion.
Yeah.
And
Love
thank
it.
you.
Love it.
Yes. Thank you to our listening audience. Please join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube or download our podcast at your convenience on demand. We have new episodes dropping every Thursday on Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Spotify. So until next time, keep on keeping on for the greater, making your leadership matter.